So first, I want to introduce Dr. Leary. Dr. Leary graduated from Temple University School of Dentistry in 1986, and then enlisted in the U.S. Navy, where he was on active duty for 3 years and spent 14 years in the reserves. He has 31 years of private practice experience, and he is currently serving on the ADA Board of Trustees as the 2nd District Trustee, representing New York State. He's been married for 34 years and is the proud dad to 2 daughters.
Our next presenter is Dr. Amrita Patel, who is a 2011 graduate of the NYU College of Dentistry, after which she completed a GPR program at the Nassau University Medical Center. Dr. Patel and her father own multiple group practices in the metro New York City area. She was a chair of the NYSDA New Dentist Committee, is on the board of NYSDA Support Services, and is the new dentist representative on the NYSDA Council of Ethics. She also has been inducted into the International College of Dentists, where she serves as their fellow ambassador of social media. She's part of the 2020-2021 class of the ADA Institute for Diversity and Leadership, and will serve as a new dentist representative in the upcoming year at the ADA Council on Dental Benefit Plans.
Dr. Brenda Shah is a new general dentist practicing in the greater Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. Brenda served as the District 2 trustee from 2019 to 2020 and held other roles in the district cabinet, such as events chair and social media website chair, during her time at NYU College of Dentistry. Brenda holds a bachelor's degree in neurobiology and physiology from the University of Maryland, and she is a current member of the New Dentist Committee of the Maryland State Dental Association.
Next, we have Dr. Wanamaker. Dr. James Wanamaker is chair of the New Dentist Committee for NYSDA. He graduated from the University at Buffalo School of Dental Medicine in 2016. He served as the chair of ASDA's Council on Advocacy and has served in multiple roles in organized dentistry on the local, state, and national levels since graduation. He owns a private practice outside of Syracuse, New York.
And finally, we have Dr. Vitkus. Dr. Lauren Vitkus is an orthodontist and owner of her practice, Vitkus Orthodontics, in the Finger Lakes region of New York. A former ASDA District 2 trustee and former president of the Buffalo ASDA chapter, she remains active in organized dentistry, currently serving as the NYSDA representative to the ADA Council on Youth and Younger Members, and as a representative on the American Association of Orthodontists Council on Communications.
Okay, I will, I think, kick this thing off here for you. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanking for giving your Sunday morning up. Sounds like we may have a fire alarm somewhere going off. If I go to the next slide here, I can tell you some of the most important things. Trying to limit to 10 minutes how to describe to you what your ADA is doing for you is trying to fit an entire suitcase into my wallet. But just to start off, this McCarran-Ferguson bill is actually the revocation of the McCarran-Ferguson bill passed both the House and Senate and still maintains its position on the president's desk. We're trying to avoid any political discussions this morning. So what we're going to try to say is this has been a 15 to 20 year plan trying to get this thing to get rid of the ability for insurance companies to discuss ourselves when we're not allowed to discuss ourselves together. Huge advantage and a amazing finish of our advocacy group at the ADA group in Washington, led by Mike Graham, and also by our Council on Governmental Affairs in Chicago. I'm going to throw some acronyms at you. The EIDL and the PPP loans, which have been very significant. Economic injury disaster loan and the Paycheck Protection Program loans. A dentist in February of 2020 had no idea what these were. By the middle of March, they were lifeblood, something that was made available to us, made available on a situation that says, what do I do now? I'm going to continually refer back to the idea that if I ever tried to do any of this stuff by myself, there's no way I could possibly try to run my practice, run my staff, and then get in touch with all of these things. So what the ADA does with resources, with research, with resources in advocacy, and with resources that are available to dentists all over the country in 52 different licensing districts, puts all of that force together with 163,000 members. And for that group, we have a great influence over getting a lot of these things done. That's the way going in. What's coming out is the product of what we develop here. You see a legislation with McCarran-Ferguson, idle PPP loans. Then we got into this reopening issue when we all were trying to reopen after offices closed down to urgent and emergent care in mid-March because we were fighting an adversary we had no idea about. So everybody said, well, dental offices closed then. Well, actually, that was never a recommendation by any professional organization. What our recommendation was close to routine care, but to take the burden off the emergency rooms and remain open for urgent and emergent care. The primary goal every time you'll hear something coming from the ADA is that the dentist, who is the leader of the team, is left to make the decision. We do not want to leave our clinical decisions left to legislatures. Next slide, please. After the toolkit, which I mentioned there, I don't know a single dentist in the New York area that wasn't following the toolkit and all of its recommendations to open ourselves up. Now we're in a position, vaccines are available. The fact that vaccines are available is a miracle by itself when you look at vaccine development. So the first question is, well, where does the dentist stand in line? The ADA, as recently as Thursday of this week, published that we are considered to be in group 1A. Why is there a line at all? Well, consider it. If you've got 200,000 healthcare providers and 200 vaccines, I'm using arbitrary numbers here, you've got to determine who should get that first. And remember, we're not talking to a field of dentists, we're talking to a field of legislators who are trying to provide for all of their constituents. So the lines begin to form as soon as we know the vaccine is available. The other part of this that becomes very, very critical to understand is that dentistry is safe. We've been banging that drum since we opened, and we all reopened for regular care. So if we suddenly run back into the legislature and tell them why we need to be in there in front line because we're at such high risk, it's hard to have that argument that makes sense. So now we're in a situation that says dentistry is safe, we belong in line, but we don't want to elbow our way any further in front of that line. Yes, we are indeed treating patients in a close proximity. We are protected behind a wall of PPEs, and we are safe in the delivery of our care. So now you can understand why there's so much of an issue between when you start banging that drum too loud about why we're not higher up on that line. Unfortunately, not every state legislature agrees with the 1A statement, but most of them have. And fortunately, in District 2, most of our legislators, both in New York and New Jersey, have taken that position that we do belong indeed in Group 1A. And we therefore have had access. Currently in my practice, myself, my associate, and my partner have been vaccinated, and 9 of my 13 staff have. 2 of them have chosen not to be vaccinated, and another is got an appointment on Monday. So the real question then becomes, with all of these battles I'm mentioning to you, are you prepared to try to do this by yourself? Or are you going to get in line with the rest of us, join us together where your voice can be heard, and as a professional organization, take that battle forward? And I assure you, in almost every instance I come across in the course of all of my time in my naval career and my career as a dentist practicing in private practice, I have leaned back on the ADA and my local and state components in so many instances that it is hard to even describe what that has been worth to my career and my ability to take care of my patients. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the national lockdowns in March, and the lockdown is something that became a very fearful thing going forward, because as this surge has recurred in the fall and this winter now that we're in, there was a concern that suddenly that the legislative bodies around the country would suddenly suggest that perhaps we close again. And again, we send, as essential providers, we never closed. And that message was clearly spelled out, not only to members every day on the ADA morning huddle, which became the focal point. And just to give you an example, the morning huddle used to get between 10 to 15,000 hits on any given monthly period. During the period of the peak of this, during March, April, May, when most of the offices were either closed or closed to down to urgent care, that number went up into the millions. And fortunately for us, the ADA had made a seriously perfect time decision, and it's dumb luck, honestly. But we upgraded our in a digital upgrade. We changed much of the foundation of what our digital presence was. We would have crashed over and over again if that spend wasn't made to increase our digital presence. So fortunately, we had that in front of everyone. FEMA, the FDA, the FTC, the Department of Education, they consult with the ADA. And therefore, we have so many people in the governmental forces that look to the ADA for direction of oral health care. So when they're looking to develop policies, they rely on the benefits and the research that we provide them, including, which is something that will affect each one of you, CODA, which runs your licensing program and your licensing ability out of graduation from school. CODA is self-run by the ADA, and it is an organization that the Department of Education federally looks to CODA to provide those standards. Federal guidelines are not guiding us. CODA does. And they know we've got this so well covered that they rely on us for that. And that's why it always puzzles me when a member or a non-member says, well, what do I really need the ADA for? And I look back and said, you wouldn't have a license in your hand right now if you didn't have the standards that were set by the ADA. So that's one of those issues where dentistry is essential has become a critical part of why we would not only weren't we closed the first time, but not would we be closed under any circumstance. And as a matter of fact, our medical colleagues rely on us seriously to handle the dental problems that would otherwise overrun their emergency rooms, especially in an issue of a pandemic. And the last thing I'll leave you with is a dentist with as many years of experience as myself has a lot of experience in a lot of things. But in dealing with pandemics, we're all first-year students because we've never had this before. So I assure you, your experience, your feeling about how this is dealt with becomes as significant in dealing with pandemics as mine does after as many years of experience as I have. So I count on every one of you being at the table to help us make the decisions we have to do to move our profession forward. And that I will hand it off, I believe, to Lauren to take the next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leary. Thank you for all your hard work. All of us, you all are sitting here today on this Zoom, and Zoom to become a way of life this past 12 months or so for us. And I bet Dr. Leary has been on more of them than any of us. So it's obviously been a lot to take on, and thank you for all the work you've done on behalf of us all. So as I kick off here, I do just want to clarify for everyone. So you'll see on this screen, ADA NDC updates. And I know this was confusing for me until just a couple years ago. And I did just want to explain to everyone that we have an American Dental Association New Dentist Committee, and then we have our NYSDA New Dentist Committee. So it is James and Amrita before him as chair who worked tirelessly to develop programming for all of you and really advocate on the grassroots level for all of our NYSDA new dentists. Myself, I consider myself a runner. So I am NYSDA's representative to the ADA New Dentist Committee. So my role and responsibility is to bring the wants, needs, information on what's going on in NYSDA at a new dentist level to Dr. Leary and Dr. Gahani before him and the Board of Trustees. So bring all of this nationally so that they can pool the information from across the nation and really advocate for the New Dentist Committee. Next slide, please. So therefore, then looking nationally, what does that mean? So we have 17 new dentist members from across the country that represent all of the districts. So I represent NYSDA District 2. And as I just shared, our responsibilities are to review and make recommendations regarding policy. We advise the Board of Trustees, Dr. Leary and his group. We promote the role of the new dentist, and we really work to foster leadership to get more of us into positions nationally. And we advise on and insist in implementation of ADA dental school strategy. So many of you may be familiar with the ADA Success Programs, and that is our ADA New Dentist Committee who helps oversee that. Next slide, please. And I just wanted to touch upon some of the recent successes of our ADA New Dentist Committee, as well as our collaborations. That'll be on the next slide, just so you're all familiar on what we really are working to do nationally. Some of you may be familiar with some of the content on this slide, and I've really listed on the next two slides this information, so it would be available to you after. But in May, Procter & Gamble provided a $250,000 grant to the ADA to help new dentists. That's a lot of money, and we had to figure out how to allocate that money. So it's been our ADA New Dentist Committee who has been working to develop resources that focus on wellness and how to incorporate these funds. And that's still very much in the preliminary stages, so we'll keep you updated on that. New this year is also a resource for new dentists. So the New Dentist Weekly Huddle comes out each Wednesday morning, and that's available to students and new dentists alike. So for anybody interested in receiving that, if you're not receiving it, that would be as part of your ADA membership. And a big thing, especially for all of the women on this Zoom here today, is that the New Dentist Committee recommended a guideline for practice success module on managing pregnancy, and that was launched this past year. So that's now available as well as part of the ADA Accelerator program. Next slide for us, please. And I did just want to point out a couple of our New Dentist Committee collaborations on a national level. So back in 2017, ADA New Dentist Committee members were given voting rights. So know that there's 17 of us voting nationally on all of the ADA councils and committees, really working to bring forward the voice of the new dentist. We collaborate with the Diversity Inclusion Committee to foster a welcome and inclusive association for all dentists, important now more than ever. The New Dentist Committee provides feedback and advocates for positive policy change regarding student loan debt. You know, this past year for all of us in practice, it's been the pandemic that's really been the focus, the PPP and the EIDL that Dr. Leary spoke of. But student loan debt, especially being students, is still on the forefront of all of your minds, and know that we're still working very hard to advocate for those policy changes. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is the ADA Practice Transitions Program. And I really wish, you know, if we were in person, I'd ask all of you to raise your hands to share if this is something you had heard of. But I did want to bring this forward for those of you who may not have heard of this. It's a really exciting future opportunity. But the ADA is developing a program that will make the process of entering or leaving practice more successful. And this will entail creating a profile and helping people entering the workforce pair up with people leaving the workforce. So a really exciting thing that the New Dentist Committee is weighing in on and helping develop. And with that, I'll pass it on to our next presenter.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for having me. One of the first things I wanted to say about ASDA is one of the best things about ASDA is all the friendships that you guys are forming and the networks that you are creating. All the people on this panel, I got to know many of them during my ASDA years, so it's great to be able to share the stage with them. And you never know when it's going to cycle back when you're a student getting involved in ASDA, when you may be coming back on the other end, helping mentor new dental students or current dental students. The first time I spoke with ASDA at the District 2 meeting, I actually had a Maryland bridge for number 8 that I broke off on a delicious New York City bagel. And I had to give a 1-hour licensure update that I think Dr. Gambacorta gave to you guys yesterday. I gave that about 4 or 5 years ago, broke off number 8 and had to give that hour presentation with no number 8. So this is a much more comfortable presentation to give with a full set of teeth. So I'm on the New Dentist Committee for New York State. We could go to the next slide. We're missing this slide, but I'll talk about the new dentist committee. We're part of the Council on Membership. We have one member from each of the 13 components of New York. So in each component, you have a new dentist representative. They are the representative for that local district to the new dentist committee. And then the chair of the new dentist committee is the liaison to the board of trustees for NYSDA. In dental school is stressful. You guys are all trying to graduate, you're trying to get your requirements, you're trying to get a license. That is all a very stressful time. And those stresses don't go away, they just change. When you're out in practice as a new dentist, you're trying to find a job, you're trying to figure out what your practice model is going to be. You're trying to figure out how to navigate this new world as a dentist. It is a stressful time. But one of the resources that NYSDA has is the new dentist committee is here to help you navigate those. The next slide. Oh, we can go one more too. And then, yep, perfect, you can play that video. So the new dentist committee has a starting out guide. It's a comprehensive guide to everything you need to know as a new dentist on how to practice in New York State. It has all the different regulations, where to find them in New York State, ranging from OSHA regulations to HIPAA regulations to tax laws, to employee resources. How do you manage a practice? How do you work in a practice as an associate? How do you work in a practice as a partner? These resources are essential to becoming a successful dentist in New York State. And having this guideline is an amazing resource, and it's on the NYSDA website for all NYSDA members. And the resources that NYSDA and the ADA came out with during this pandemic were amazing. Dr. Leary was talking about those. And for me, I bought my practice about a year before the pandemic. I was not expecting the first year as a new practice owner to having to figure out, how am I going to keep my practice running? How am I going to keep my 15 team members working? How am I going to make sure that they are financially taken care of? How am I able to make sure that my own finances are taken care of when I have student loans, I have a practice loan, and a new family? So these resources were essential. And I don't think my practice would have survived without the resources that came from the ADA and from NYSDA, and them advocating for us on a national level to get some of those PPP and EIDL programs that Dr. Leary talked about. So once you guys graduate, I encourage you to go on the NYSDA website, download that resource, that starting out guide. You can even look at it beforehand. It has a lot of great information on licensure as well, because as you all know, that is changing rapidly as well. Can we go to the next slide? Oh, one more. Perfect. So how do you get involved in NYSDA? So you can get involved as a student, actually. So a lot of the local components have local student representatives. I know both Lauren and I both were representatives to the 7th district and the 8th district from Buffalo back when we were a student, and some of the other downstate districts may have availability to get in as a representative as well. Reach out to those local components and see how you can get involved. When you're a resident, if you stay in New York and you have to do a residency, a lot of the local components also have a residency liaison position. I served in that role in the 5th district, and that's how I proceeded on to become a new dentist representative once I finished residency. And you can represent the issues that you face as a resident and as a new dentist to your local component. Right now, you can also attend some of our upcoming Success Series webinars. NYSDA's New Dentist Council is putting together presentations on different issues that we are all facing. The first one is going to be coming up in February. It's going to be focusing on burnout and mental health, because after a year of going through all of this pandemic, everyone's tired, everyone has their own stressors, and how we can manage that and overcome it is going to be essential. Some of the other topics include legal issues for new dentists and accounting 101 for new dentists. And hopefully in person, we have some future in-person events coming up. Next slide. In June, we have our new dentist conference. This may be virtual, it may be in person, that's still yet to be determined. Our two speakers are Joshua Austin. He's from Dental Economics. He works with Chris Salerno, who some of you guys may have seen earlier today. He's going to be talking about what new materials and tech are coming out to expedite excellence in our practices. And then Gina Dorfman, who I think you guys had as a keynote speaker yesterday, is going to be talking about marketing yourselves in practice on social media. So look out for more details on that and how you guys might be able to get involved with those presentations. And now I will turn it over to, I think, Amrita's next. Dr. Patel.
I am. Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me on here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the IDL, which I think Dr. Maranga touched on if you were in her breakout session, and also a couple updates from things that have been going on at NYSDA. Next slide, please. Awesome. So we know that dental school classes, new dentists, seasoned dentists, and everyone in between are increasingly becoming more diverse. And so, of course, we want our leadership to reflect this. And despite the fact that new dentists make up a significant portion of ADA member dentists, this isn't always reflected in the representation that new dentists have at the ADA House of Delegates. So the ADA Institute for Diversity and Leadership is designed to enhance the leadership skills of dentists who belong to racial, ethnic, and/or gender backgrounds that have been traditionally underrepresented in leadership roles. The kind of goals and objectives are to enhance leadership skills and gain leadership experience, to strengthen professional networks and build a lifetime of supportive relationships, and to set new leadership paths within the profession and communities. This comes right off the ADA website, and we just started. I'm part of the current class, I guess the 2020-2021 class. We've had a few sessions already, and to be able to link up with people all over the country that have all sorts of different paths into dentistry, into organized dentistry, and into leadership has been really eye-opening. Next slide, please. So the application is open from January to May each year. In June, the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, which I know, again, Dr. Maranga talked about, reviews all applications and selects the 21 members of the new incoming class. Any licensed dentist, regardless of ADA membership status, is eligible to apply. The application includes things like a personal statement. There's a couple essays that you have to do that show past leadership experience and, you know, kind of what you did in situations where you had to show that you were a leader, some ideas for your IDL project, and then some references. So if any of you are interested, as a D4, you can apply if you're going to be obviously going to a place where you're going to be a licensed dentist without doing a GPR. Susie Galvan is the person that you need to reach out to. I can have Michelle or Alyssa share her contact information. Susie is the manager of the Diversity and Inclusion and Direct Member Outreach. Next slide, please. So here's where I'm going to spend my last couple minutes. So at the ADA, every ADA council has a position open for new dentists. And up until 2019, here in New York, we did not. So that has changed since 2019. And everyone that's on the call in a leadership position here had something to do with that. So how did this happen? This happened because there was a NYSDA bylaws change, and we wanted to, of course, align ourselves with the ADA, and we wanted to acknowledge the over 2,000 new dentists who are members here in New York. And again, we know that former ASDA leaders, and so many of you, are one of the best places to fill our pipeline to leadership to secure the future of our profession. So what happened? So as James mentioned, the New Dentist Committee is a committee of the Membership Council. And so we put together a resolution to our House of Delegates that had to go through the Membership Council. And in it, we asked for a new dentist position on all state councils, much like what we have at the ADA, and also in many other states. How did we do this? Well, we leaned a lot on ASDA leaders who were, at that point, Brenda Shah, who's about to go after me, Joe Manzella, and so many other people. And we also talked to a lot of former ASDA leaders who did not continue their involvement as they graduated, because we wanted to know why and what happened and how we could do things better. So what we did is we put this together and we presented this resolution at the 2019 House of Delegates, which at that point happened in Buffalo. So I see a lot of Buffalo dental students on. I know that a few of you were at the House when this happened. And we presented the resolution. A little background: in order to enact a bylaws change, you need a supermajority vote. a supermajority vote is over 2/3 of a vote. It's not just a 50+1. And we were able to get it. And it was a massive task. And we had to collaborate with members and leaders at all levels. But we were able to do it. So anyone that is interested, if NYSDA is your home and New York is where you're going to be, you're a new dentist, you are able to apply for a position on any council that you're interested in. And there is an application and, of course, kind of a process for that. So that was a very big win for all of us. Next slide, please. Click it one more time, and there we are. There they are. So there's Brenda and Joe. This photo was used with permission at the end of the House of Delegates in 2019. I just want to leave you all with this. Your voices matter, you matter, everyone matters. And this is a organized dentistry in general, and as we know, life is a big collaborative effort. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without the people that came before us, who paved this road. And now we need to secure the future of our profession for all of our successors. So please get involved. And I'm going to turn that over now to Brenda.
Thanks so much. That picture just reminded me of what a fun experience, just getting to go to the NYSDA House of Delegates, but also have a vote. And just actually help with the resolution for new dentists to be on this council. That was huge. One of my best memories in NYSDA. So hi everyone, I'm Brenda. I am your immediate past District 2 trustee. And I just kind of want to switch gears a little bit. So I don't have any updates because I'm no longer in your guys' district. But I was going to talk more about the transition out of dental school and kind of what that's like with organized dentistry as well. And my little quote at the bottom, my worst day in private practice is still better than my best day in dental school. For anyone that doesn't really know me, dental school really sucked. I absolutely hated every minute of it, but as does what got me through. These mentors that are on this presentation with me, they're the ones that got me through it. Dr. Patel, I've called her crying on numerous occasions because, my denture didn't fit, or, I couldn't get the bite registration or all these things. So I've very, very recently been where you all are. And so if anyone needs that light at the end of the tunnel, I'll be that person for you. Next slide, please. So many of you will be hopefully graduating this year or in the coming years. So what do you do after that? There's a lot of different avenues that you can enter in dentistry, which makes this such a wonderful field. So obviously, if you're going to practice in New York, you need to do a residency. But if you want to move somewhere else or practice somewhere else, there are other options right after graduation, like private practice. There's corporate dentistry, there's the military, public health, prison dentistry, the National Health Service Corps, and then just practicing abroad as well. So I chose the route of private practice. I wanted to practice back in my hometown in Maryland. And so luckily I was able to secure that position even in the middle of the pandemic. So I was very lucky with that. When it comes to finding a job in private practice, whether you're going straight out after school or after residency, big thing is going to be networking. So the ADA has a great program with ADAPT, where you can be paired up with a good mentor and slowly start to transition into ownership as well. There's a lot of different bulletin boards and stuff that all the different state dental associations have where jobs are constantly posted. And you just have to get yourself out there and market yourself, send a lot of emails, give a lot of phone calls, but also just go in person, introduce yourself. It's really interesting now being on the hiring side of things too, because I'm an associate at a practice and they were hiring another associate for the other practice. So I actually ended up being part of the hiring process as I just got hired. So it's fun how things kind of evolve quickly. So just know that you're going to be fine with your skills. Dental school doesn't teach you everything. Residency doesn't teach you everything, but just believe in yourself, market yourself, and figure out where you want to go. Like Dr. Wanamaker was saying, what is your practice model, practice style? What do you want to do? Next slide, please. So what to look for in a job? You want to look for your compensation structure. Are you getting paid an X amount per day? Are you being paid off of production or collection? Are you paying for the lab bill? What are your days and hours? Not everyone jumps right into one full-time job. You might be working a couple part-time jobs, trying to find different types of communities that you want to practice in, different styles of practice, different business structures. How often are you going to get paid? This is a big one, especially when you're trying to get your life figured out after practice. This may be your first job ever, so you don't know what it's like to start paying your own bills and your lifestyle and like how much you actually spend and make every week or every month. So that's something that I really had to learn too. Not that this is my first job, but it's my first full-time job right after school. Look at different things like restrictive covenants, termination, resignation, getting paid for things that are done during hygiene appointments, different benefits. Big things are malpractice insurance and retirement planning. Dental school doesn't do a really great job of teaching you about the finances and investing in your future. So I spent a lot of time in the last 6 months really becoming more financially literate in different groups and stuff like that when it comes to just things that you might find in your contract. And so bolded and underlined, get a lawyer to look at your contract before you sign. I don't think there's like a single person in dentistry that I've interacted with that hasn't like screamed this at my face. Like, you need to make sure you get someone to look at your contract. And for me, it was someone that I knew that was going to hire me, but I still had a lawyer look at the contract. You just don't know what you're looking at. So make sure you don't get yourself into a compromising position without realizing it. Next slide, please. So then you have a job. Fantastic. Now, what are all the things you have to do after that? So also you may, if you're going straight out of residency or practice, you need to get a license. So that may involve a law or ethics exam. You may have a lot of different things that you need to compile before you're able to apply. These applications are very complicated. Just make sure you don't make any mistakes. Make sure you take your time when filling it out and then give yourself enough time to get it processed. So with the pandemic, it was a huge issue because it was taking months for some people to get licensed. And there were people that had already signed leases for apartments and stuff. And they're like, I need to start working so I can afford my lease, but they weren't going to start practicing for a couple months. So it was really tough over the summer for a lot of people. I was hearing in New Jersey and in some other states, it might even take up to 2 months until they were fully licensed to practice. Then you may have to get certified to prescribe drugs in your state, and then federally through the DEA. That takes a lot of time. So whoever hires you, you may need to talk to them about these timelines that you may have. I didn't get fully licensed for about 3 or 4 months into practice through the DEA. And again, that complicated process, you have to make sure everything's correct. So you want to take your time. I'm still working on getting verified by insurances. So if you're going to be working in a practice where they take insurance as a first-time dentist, no one told me how hard it was going to be getting verified with insurance. I'm still working on it, like I said, and I've been practicing for over 6 months now. So working with your office for that too is going to be really important. The ADA has a really great resource called the CAQH. I don't remember what all those letters stand for, but ADA CAQH ProView, and that helps you a lot with this insurance process. So it's really great that the ADA has that as a resource. It makes it a lot more streamlined because it could have been even worse than what I'm experiencing right now. So I'm thankful for the ADA in that regard. Malpractice insurance, like I mentioned before, is going to be really important. Disability insurance. So funny story about disability insurance. I was going to go through who my mentor was going through, and we just weren't on the same page about a lot of things. I needed someone to describe things to me. Someone who's worked with me before. I was like, who have we worked with in ASDA? So I actually reached out to one of the ASDA reps that I was working with when I was trustee, and at that point, I was like trying to get fundraising money for a district meeting, and I got really close to one of the reps for one of the companies, and he helped me out. He hopped on a Zoom call with me for 5 minutes and explained all I needed to know about disability insurance and hooked me up with his friend in Maryland who got me disability insurance. So my little nugget with this is use your ASDA network and use this time to get to know all the different reps that we have for different people that help fund our events. So talk to all the different corporate sponsors, all the insurance sponsors, all the people that you can, because you never know where these people are going to help you out in the future and where you may need them in the future. Organized dentistry. So that's another big thing. If you're going to stay in the New York, New Jersey area, you guys are very lucky because you are already on these Zoom calls and already have these names and faces with you, like Dr. Leary, Dr. Patel, Dr. Vitkus, like all these people were past, they're past people in our new dentist committees that then moved on to the ADA. You also had people that were ASDA leaders like Dr. Wanamaker, Dr. Vitkus. They were on the boards. They were on these positions that you're on the board. So they have really, really good skills that they've developed through these programs. And that way they can pass it on to you as well, or they can tell you what to look for, what resources to use when you're in school or starting off as a new dentist. Mentorship is going to be another thing. If you don't find that through organized dentistry, find that in your private practice or in your other field of dentistry that you might be entering in. Other things to do that I've had to take care of in the last 6 months: health insurance, retirement planning, life insurance, renting, making your own business cards, getting professional social media. I know Dr. Wanamaker has been doing a really good job with his social media. I've been watching him from a distance, just marketing himself and marketing his practice, marketing his skills, marketing himself as a family man with his baby. Like there's a lot of different things that you can do. So you need to just figure out what you want to do with that and run with it. And then, like I said, start figuring out what style of practice you want to go in. So this is just kind of like a brief thing. I'm not going to go into every little point here. The big things are, for me, the confidence part. You got to be confident in yourself, but you also have to be humble. You are going to make mistakes, so learn from them. Another little story. So obviously, just in the first 6 months, I've been making a lot of mistakes, but also learning from them. And the best of the best will be making mistakes as well. So I'm a big Ravens fan. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens are going to be playing today, and I'm super excited. And he's 24 years old and still making mistakes, but he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And so whenever I watch a game and I see him make a mistake, he doesn't beat himself up about it. You know, he takes it as a mistake and he learns from it and he moves forward. And that's what we got to do as new dentists. So you didn't learn every little thing in dental school. You're going to need to learn things on the job or in residency, which is another great place to learn things where it's not on your license. And the other thing is, when you're going to be starting off, you're going to have different dental materials, different techniques and equipment to try. So take the CE, learn what you got to learn. And I think Dr. Wanamaker, Dr. Leary, someone said like dentistry is not easy. It will age you a lot quicker. You can see my gray hairs that I have going on, but it's all about your perspective, just kind of your blessings. You're in a really great field with really great people. You get to make a really big difference in people's lives, and you get to have fun doing all of it. So yeah, I think that's it. Next slide. Yeah, woo.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing all of your unique perspectives. Every time I hear you speak, I always get something out of it. So you all are so wise and have so much to bring to the table. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I just wanted to, as we move into the panel discussion, we have a few minutes for that. Jake had asked in the chat about the NYSDA Success Series webinars. So when we get the information, I will send it out. And although you will probably have a new trustee at the time, we'll make sure we get it posted on the social media, get an email blast out and everything. So I had a few questions that were privately chatted to me. And if anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or put your name in the chat and we will call on you. The first question that we have is, are you able to stay involved with organized dentistry and also make adequate time for your family, hobbies, and everything else?
I can go. Yeah, I obviously am not as involved right now on the tripartite level as everyone else here maybe. Like I'm just really involved on like the local and the state level, not the ADA level. But I still go to the gym multiple times a week. I spend a lot of time with my friends. I go hiking almost every weekend. Yeah, I have a lot of free time. It's just about planning. I think it was easier for me now as a new dentist or as a practicing dentist to balance it all out, because I honestly thought dental school was more demanding when it came to these things and more stressful when it came to these things, because I was balancing requirements and all these things, and I didn't have the autonomy over my schedule to even work out once a week, let alone multiple times a week. So right now as a new dentist, I'm like living the dream. Thank God. Like I'm so happy. I really am thankful for it. So I think you guys can easily make time for it.
I think there's also a very interesting point that you make, that there are certain times when you hand the baton to somebody else because you're busy and you know that it's being carried very well for you, and then accept the baton back when it's your turn. It's funny for you to consider right now, but in my position as the ADA trustee representing the state of New York, there was a time in my career when I was sitting in your seat and never believing in that time that I would ever be where I am. But now that I have the time and have dedicated myself to this position, it is a matter of a choice that I could not possibly have made within the first 5 years of practice to dedicate this much time to it. But if you look at the people else on this panel right now, in various stages of our careers, if the small window of time you provide is all we need, but your voice needs to be heard. So maybe it isn't more than a meeting, maybe one committee, maybe just a general membership meeting. Eventually, if you're inspired to do so, not all of us have to be at the microphone, but you want the person at the microphone informed with what your opinion is. So that's such an important piece of, not everybody has to be in front, but everybody has to know how you feel.
Yeah, and that's such a good lesson and such a good point. I'm just going to say this really quickly. You know, the way I choose to live my life has always been that love shows up. And if you think about when you're little and your parents take off time from work or from whatever it is they have to do when they're there at the PTA meeting, or they're there for your first grade musical, and that progresses, and you know, they made the time to show up. And then as we progress in our lives and our careers, we show up for our loved ones, our career and our profession that we love, and the causes, and of course the things that are very important to us. So that doesn't mean that it needs to be for, you know, every single time there's a meeting, but you show up how you can and when you can. So just remember that, you know, we are all, of course, very involved, and like Dr. Leary said, at various stages in our career, but any voice, any input, any sort of opinion, anything is always welcome. And anyone else has anything to add, they can.
I think balancing family, that was just one thing I wanted to touch upon. Both James and I were blessed to welcome our first child in 2020. So what a year it's been. And being both of us particularly involved with new dentist committees, I just want to let everybody know on here who may be considering involvement that once you get involved in these things, we're all there to support each other. So what Dr. Leary said about that baton, I know this has been a busy year for myself in particular, but I know that I have fellow members who maybe had a little more time this year who were picking up the work on my behalf. So know that, yes, it's absolutely possible as long as we all work as a team.
And I'll echo what Lauren said, and also make sure that your family is on board and supportive too, because you don't do it alone. It usually takes a village, and you know, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without my wife helping me, the same way that, you know, Dr. Vitkus probably would be able to do the same without her husband chipping in. So make sure that your families are on board and tell them why it's important to you to be involved, and help them understand why you're prioritizing what you're prioritizing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know this is the end of our time, but if anyone has any last minute questions, I know they all put their contact emails and handles and some phone numbers in the chat. So if you want to take a screenshot or you want to contact any of them, you can definitely do so that way. And thank you so much again to all of you for taking the time out of your Sunday and speaking with us about organized dentistry past ASDA. Okay, so